masters, masters, masters of change.
Hello there. Welcome to Masters of Change. My name is Kim Cuneo and I'm the head of music at the Australian National University, and I'm here with my good friend Charlie Hogg. And Charlie is the director of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, and we're having conversations on spiritual life. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Kim. Great to be back again.
This has been a very interesting period for both of us. If people have been listening to recent episodes, they'd know we're talking about a beautiful topic called balance. And we've been looking at big balances and little balances. And this is possibly my favourite of all of them. And it's good to leave your favourite for last. And this is the balance of being assertive and letting go of things. I mean, what a profound thought, because surely we need to do both.
Yeah, we do, don't we, Kim? Because often we grow up with a natural inclination to one or the other, don't we? Like, I think the majority of people just hold in themselves, and then they just have so much negative thinking about someone and blame them, but haven't been able to develop a way of expressing their feelings inside, but in maybe a kind and respectful way. And then others maybe find it, something happens, they'll just, wow, assertive. And it is a huge, just let things go. And I mean that mentally, put a full stop, that's finished. Or when I need to express something and say something. And I think probably what is the energy behind the expression? Does my energy hurt the other person, or does my energy express with love and respect? So it's not so much what you say, it's the energy behind what you say that really has impact.
Really, what you're saying to me is that our motivation is so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we're not motivated by the desire to help even the person who on the face of it might be in conflict with us right now, but we still have to have a desire to help them.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
And Kim, as we've been discussing, I love that the law of karma, the whole thing is about intent, isn't it? Which is what you're really saying, that the intent is to be positive and benevolent, then it will always, I think, the outcome will be good. But if the intent, even slightly, is a little bit angry, a little bit irritated, a little bit you're stupid or something, it won't be a successful outcome. And I am quite conscious myself that if I need to express something, what places it's coming from. Because if it's coming from even a tiny place of negativity or hurt or anger, it will not have the desired effect. So assertiveness is necessary, but what is the intent behind the assertiveness?
It seems to me that we often get this describe the process in slow motion of things going wrong. So we start off, it's all fine, the person seems to agree with me, and then suddenly we have a difference of opinion or belief.
Which is the most inevitable thing in life. And I think one of my biggest life lessons is that everyone is different. And I think, often we see love as that you should sort of think and act according to what I like, but actually true love is accepting, that person. And so if they behave in a way which I find a little bit challenging, I think it's always going to happen. Sometimes I just, it's okay. It's life. Everyone's got their unique personality. Let me just put a full stop, move forward. Not hold on to it. But if it's an ongoing behaviour, and if it's sort of stepping on a boundary that's important to you, or you feel it's inappropriate in a workplace or a family setting, we have to learn how to express and somehow communicate back to that individual that this isn't really the way I feel is the way to behave. And I've often had the thought there's two forms of criticism. There's criticism and there's constructive criticism. And criticism is when I'm a bit annoyed with you and I'm frustrated with you, and so I criticize, and usually that virtually never works, especially today. Constructive criticism is when I love you. I have your best interests at heart. So the whole energy of my assertion comes from a place of respecting and valuing you. And actually I'm saying this because I want you to even move forward and progress in your life. So it's the whole sort of, once again, it's the whole feelings behind what you're saying. So they can be the same words, the criticism and the constructive criticism, they're exactly the same language, but the energy, one is an energy of love and caring and wanting you to move forward. The other is an energy of, I've had enough of you and you've got to listen to what I've got to tell you, because I'm disapproving of your behaviour.
It seems to me, Charlie, that if we're going to dance this dance, and it's a hard dance at times,
It is.
we need to be really discerning.
That's the word.
Because, we need to know the difference between sometimes, no matter what our motivation is, we just really need to not be involved.
Yeah.
But yet our culture tells us so often that the active person is the one who's doing the good thing. So we've got to try and fix everything. We're almost addicted to the idea that we can know everything and fix everything. And in our country, Australia, we have, immensely wonderful Indigenous traditions. And one of the pieces of feedback that Indigenous peoples give to the occupiers of this country is that, why do you want to know everything?
Yeah.
And it seems to me that discernment is the key. So please talk about spiritual discernment to us.
Yeah, it's a wonderful ability, isn't it, to discern another, meaning discern their mood, discern their sensitivity, discern how they will take it if I am offering something, even with love. And to be frank, I err on the side of caution. And if I decide that it's just going to perhaps upset someone more than help them, even if I've really come to a point in my life, I just don't think it's worth hurting anybody. I just don't think. And sometimes you just have to accept that it is what it is, and that's the way it's going to be. And I'm really careful that the discernment is, you really tune in. And in a way I see it as emotional intelligence, that I'm so tuned in I can pick up whether this person will listen or won't listen to this. And if I'm slightly, this little tiny bit unsure that they won't listen, I don't think it's worth. Why? I just can't say. I think it's the nature of the times. Because sometimes we're a bit of a bull in a china shop, and we think we're doing, we're fixing a situation. You were using that word, but we don't. And I think one of the forms of ego is, I have to fix. I have to resolve things, but I don't actually. And, really I think it's one of my biggest lessons in life, how everyone is different, and you just have to, and their sort of perception of life, they look through such different filters. They will sort of understand information very differently from us, and that's the beauty of life. We're very different.
Charlie, as you're speaking, I was thinking of, even though we have these strong reactions, we have very strong reactions to injustice, don't we?
Yeah, we
if
do.
we perceive there's an injustice to the world or to ourselves. And so we want to be assertive and stand up for what's right. But really, if we look at it, systematically, how often do we change that other person? And I would say rarely. Is that your experience?
Actually, I think that what we see in the world now is injustice happening, and a lot of people who don't like it, so they fight the injustice with a similar energy. Yes. So it's like they're bashing heads against each other. And I was very involved in a lot of social movements, and I began to realize that this whole thing that I am right and you are wrong, and we're seeing it all over the world, the position I'm taking, and often it might be in the name of justice, but we have a whole arrogance about it. And if you dislike the other and give them that energy, all you do is polarize them and often make them firmer in their position. And so I think we're watching these scenarios all over the world at the moment, aren't we?
Yes, it strikes me also, we have such strong reactions and we go, I can't bear that person, but we don't realise at the time that 5 years later we might have forgotten about it and be best friends.
Yeah.
Like, it is so transitory, but yet we are so attached to our emotions and our sense of self-righteousness that we can, by wanting to fix it, we are the ones who sometimes break it.
Yeah,
this is ironic, isn't it?
It's incredibly ironic how these sort of things, we try hard on it, I think, at the moment. We even make it worse often with our sort of very stubborn approach to things, you know. In the name of what we believe to be right and justice, we give sorrow. I think maybe someone makes a mistake, but my sense of justice kicks in, and my assertion is very negative or hurtful. That's an equal mistake, I would say.
Yes. This is how we really learn. But I want to ask you now, let's say we start to really we make a cultivation of this energy of letting go, because it seems like this is one of the keys. Just as we were talking recently about detachment is such a key to having a good life, letting go is a process and an attitude. How do we get good at it?
You know, I think awareness that if I hold on to things, I just get bitter and twisted in life, you know. It's almost like a decision. Do I want a life of peace and happiness, or do I want a life of bitterness and resentment? Because if things happen against what I believe are my values, things I keep holding on to it, I just build all this bitterness and resentment. And I'm afraid there are a lot of people today who just carry this etched in their heart as all this bitterness and hurt about what has happened. But wisdom is to let go. How? That's a big thing. I think, once again, to me, the ultimate thing is the connection with God. And in that connection, once again, you see what's important. And what's important is that I am loving, and I'm going to come up against all sorts of people who think differently from me, who believe differently from me. That's okay. It's absolutely fine. To me, spirituality is to allow someone to be completely different from me and accept them. Why do you have to be the same as me? To me, it's insecurity, it's fear. And that's what we're seeing in the world today, that if someone doesn't think like me, I'll hate you. But it's normal. Well, we're all different. And I think that, in the corporate world, Kim, those 4 words they often use, which is of groups, how groups go to forming, storming, norming, and performing. And what they say is the most natural thing is storming will come, differences will emerge. It's the most natural thing. There's nothing wrong. It's how we manage that. Rather than allowing people to be different, accepting different, that means you move into norming. You're different. You have to think like me. You have to behave like me. And that's when people get these deep conflicts because, I feel I am right. The way I see life is the right way, so you should behave according to my rules.
Charlie, that's profound. I think it is profound because all of us, we can start to think over time that there is a journey that makes this possible, that letting go isn't just a hope, but it is actually a path in life. I mean, I want all of us to imagine, could I ask us to do this, to bring a conflict into our mind's eye, a deep and painful conflict that we've all experienced. And as soon as we do that, we can feel the heat.
Yeah.
It's like this, the thought triggers the emotions, the bodily sensations, all the anger, all the resentment can come back in a second. So we are capable, and actually masters, unfortunately, of bringing back conflict, of unletting go. All of us are wizards at it.
Unletting go.
Yes. And so then we have to say, it's only the reverse project, isn't it? It's the reversed process of the mind. I hold it, and I would say, I want your advice on this, Charlie. Can we give it to the light of God? Do we, can we hand it over in some sense, this sort of temporary hurt that we feel in the ego, and transform it? I'd love your thought. If we're going to let it go, where does it go?
It goes into my suitcase of wisdom, I think, in a sense,
Yes.
that I just, sometimes I love the thought, Kim, that we've got this incredible world, 7.8 billion actors, they've all got their own script. I'm not writing the script, I've got to play my part well. And in a play, some are really play beautiful parts, some are a bit naughty, some are even villains, but that's life. And I'm just fascinated, and I've always been, just how different the mind can work. My brother, he and his wife, they often used to go to dinner parties together. And coming back, my sister-in-law would often debrief on the dinner party. She loved to sort of say what were the dynamics going around a table. And, my brother's perception was so different. She often used to say, my brother's name was Richard. Richard, did we go to the same dinner party? And they realized that, they were married, they had a good marriage, but the way he was perceiving things, he was doing it through his set of filters, his experience, his moods, his karmic story, his awareness, and she was doing the same. And they were reading. Basically, it's not so much what's happening there, it's what's happening in your own mind. Your perception is your creation, actually. And if you decide someone's a bad person, no matter how good they are, your perception will distort your thinking, and you convince yourself they're a bad person, and yet it's often my own creation.
Charlie, I agree completely. I have a few words for you, and I want to get your thoughts on how they could help us. It's a simple phrase: give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. We have to. The way I see the world at the moment is that it's not easy. And I feel people really want to be good, but they're struggling inside. It's a really difficult world to make sense of, and people have low self-esteem. And so if you give them a little bit of kindness, or give them the benefit of the doubt, and just sort of, don't worry, it's all okay. And sometimes just those few words or a smile, it's unbelievable the positive effect it can be. Because if we come down heavy on people, they make a little mistake according to my rules, and I come down heavy on them, it can be so hurtful. And when you talk to people, sometimes people, when they remember their lives, little things have happened, but they've massively stamped on their psyche, and it's hard for them to remove it. Now, you could say that's their weakness, there's no doubt, but we don't want to become instruments for that sort of feeling in other people.
Yes, you're so right. Really, we come back to something you've talked about time and time again. Our fundamental motivation is to help others.
Yeah.
And so I've got one more big question for you about today. Letting go seems such a beautiful thing, and it's like a cool water. It allows everything to just settle nicely. It seems once we've let go, we allow something even more profound in, and that's the energy of forgiveness.
Yes.
Could you talk about how that can come in and the transformations that are possible with that?
Yeah. To me, Kim, forgiveness is like letting go all the conditions in my mind that stop me being loving and happy. And so sometimes something happens, I hold on to it. So I suppress my love and happiness. How do I forgive? Where do I get the power? It's really, as I find, when I feel close to God, It's like God massages my heart, it softens me. And I realize that it is a choice, like we were talking a little bit earlier. Do I want a life of hurt and anger and bitterness and resentment? You did this, I'm not going to love you, I'm not going to forgive you. Or do I want a love of joy and happiness? Because if I want a life of joy and happiness, I have to learn how to forgive. And not superficially, but really from my heart. And I would say it's one of the great acts of spirituality, to have the humility and the courage just to say, I'm going to move on from this situation. And maybe I can think almost out there, people are thinking, what about this? But. But ultimately, I free myself. When I forgive, I free myself from so much pain.
Yes, anger is the jail keeper, isn't it?
It is the jail keeper.
And so we can break the jail open through the energy of forgiveness. Now, in a minute, Charlie, you'll take us on a beautiful meditation, but I wanted to ask all of us something. Could we, in our hearts, have the impulse, even if it's the smallest thing, could we, in our hearts, say, I am going to let go of a hurt in my life and bring the energy of forgiveness into it? Because we can start small, can't we, Charlie? And then it can grow. It's like we are growing a most beautiful tree, and when you just see the little seedling, we forget how great the tree can be, and this is one of the greatest of all trees.
Now, after this lovely discussion, let's step back into my inner world and begin to reflect on my own life, where perhaps I need to learn to express myself, and where perhaps I just need to put the full stop, to let go and move on. Sometimes things happen and I observe a situation and I make a decision. Perhaps it wasn't to my liking, perhaps it wasn't the way I would do things, but I accept others are different. And I put the full stop and I truly let go and move forward. This is a great power. And the more I have this relationship with the divine, with the Supreme Soul, I have the power to do this. But other times I need to express. This also needs power. It needs the power to discern, the power to read the situation, read the feelings in other souls. And if I decide to express, it should only come from the highest place in my heart. If the energy behind what I say or what I do is loving and benevolent and respectful, there will be a positive outcome. But if the energy is a little bit mixed with hurt, anger, frustration, then I mightn't get the reaction I was hoping for. The other may not listen to me. So with the power of discernment, I learn when to express from the place of a pure heart, a benevolent heart. And the more I express, I feel comfortable. I don't keep holding things inside. that build up and maybe distort my perception or my thinking. A spiritual life is a life of wisdom. A life of wisdom is a life of balance. And a life of balance is the wisdom to discern how to respond. And each situation may be different. So when I sit in that place of love for God and love for my true self as a soul, my ability to discern the right response keeps improving. A life of balance is a life of happiness. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Charlie. This has been a real journey to me. Because some time ago we actually talked about this idea that we go from darkness to the light, don't we? And this is also about that.
It is.
That no matter what we do, we can choose darkness or we can choose light. And it's so important that we remember what the choice will do to us, isn't it? That every time we choose anger or resentment, we will suffer 100, 1,000 times more than the other.
Yeah.
This has been the essence of your teaching. It's been so beautiful today, Charlie. I found it really inspiring because it's not saying we have to do this or that. We don't have to take action. We don't have to be non-active. It's just saying that we have the power right now to trust our inner higher wisdom, this power of discernment that we've talked about today. And we will know intuitively if we are compassionate and we have the inner life that we draw on, when to make that sort of stand against the so-called injustice that we believe in, and when we need to just sit with it and learn from it. But you also talked about the danger in being rash. You know, that it's okay to take our time, and if in doubt, we must take the loss on ourselves. And we must be the ones who let go, because it's no loss. You talked about it just adds to our garland of wisdom. So how can we lose if every time we have to let go of something, we just become wiser? So for that, and for so many reasons, Charlie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Kim. Wonderful to be with you again.
And dear friends, this is the end of another one of our little series, and we'd like to thank Satish and Rajaram, who've enabled so much of this to happen, all the family in Australia and all the family in India who make this possible. Go well, friends, and we'll see you next time.